The slap echoed through the small-town diner like a gunshot, slicing through the clatter of forks and the lazy hum of the jukebox. For a split second, everything froze. The waitress holding a coffee pot mid-pour, the cook looking out from behind the pass window, the few customers staring wide-eyed. And in the center of it all sat Lily Henderson, a fragile 17-year-old girl with trembling hands, a brace on her right leg, and fear filling her soft brown eyes. She hadn't done anything except exist in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her milkshake had tipped slightly when her hand spasmed, a symptom of her neurological condition, and the three boys from her school seized the moment to mock her trembling fingers. Then came the slap, sharp and cruel, landing on her cheek with a sting that brought tears she tried desperately to blink away. The boys laughed as though her pain were a performance put on just for their entertainment. Before you continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for those who can't defend themselves, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like these alive. Lily sat frozen, fear anchoring her to the booth. She wanted to disappear, to sink into the vinyl seat and slip out of sight, but she couldn't make her body cooperate. Her condition made simple movements unpredictable. Some days she could handle a short walk with minimal shakiness. Other days, her legs felt like rubber, and her hands refused to obey her. Today had already been difficult, but she'd pushed herself to come to the diner because her older brother Ethan used to bring her here on Saturdays. It made her feel close to him, even though he'd been gone for 2 years, taken by an accident no one in her family fully recovered from. The slap hadn't hurt nearly as much as the humiliation. The boys' mocking voices swirled around her, their laughter sharp as broken glass. She heard one of them saying she looked like a twitchy little puppet, and another said they wondered why someone like her even bothered coming out in public. Tears burned hotter. She hated that her body betrayed her. She hated that Ethan wasn't here to protect her the way he used to, and she hated that no one in the diner seemed willing to step in, not even the adults who pretended not to notice. The boys swaggered out eventually, as though they'd won something. One even flicked a straw wrapper at her before leaving. When the door finally shut behind them, the diner sank into a thick, uncomfortable silence. Lily pressed her fingers to her cheek, still feeling the fading imprint of the bully's palm. She tried to steady her breathing, but her chest quivered with each inhale. The waitress approached carefully, setting down a napkin and a fresh milkshake Lily hadn't ordered. "On the house," she whispered, her voice a mixture of pity and apology. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." Lily nodded without lifting her gaze. She hated pity nearly as much as cruelty. She stayed for another half hour, mostly to collect herself. By the time she pushed herself to stand, her leg felt weak and unreliable, so she moved slowly, limping toward the exit. She hoped that the humiliation would fade by the time she got home, but she doubted it. Some pain stuck like thorns under skin, sharp, invisible, and impossible to forget. Outside, the sky was dull and grey. A cool wind swept past her, rustling her hair and making her shiver. She made it halfway down the block before her leg buckled slightly. She caught herself on a bike rack, but felt her breath hitch in frustration. She hated when her body chose the worst moments to falter. She leaned there for a few minutes until she felt stable enough to continue. What Lily didn't see was the group of bikers approaching from the opposite direction, rumbling down the street like a living thunderstorm. They belonged to a local motorcycle club known as the Iron Hearts, and though their jackets looked intimidating, most of them were veterans, community volunteers, and men who'd survived their own shares of battles, physical or otherwise. They weren't dangerous, they weren't lawless, but they were fiercely loyal to the vulnerable, protective in ways that often surprised the small town that misunderstood them. The group parked their bikes outside the diner, engines rumbling to a stop. People inside the diner looked up, nervous. Bikers weren't common customers, and when they did show up, people assumed trouble followed. But these men were far from trouble. They were often the ones stopping it. Inside, the diners pretended not to stare as the bikers filed in. Big boots, leather vests, tattoos, heavy footsteps. The waitress stiffened at first, unsure if they would be friendly or difficult. But when the leader, a broad man named Hawk with weathered eyes and a greying beard, gave her a gentle smile and asked politely for coffee, her shoulders relaxed. They settled at a table, conversing in low voices, but before long Hawk's attention drifted to the milkshake sitting abandoned at Lily's booth. He noticed the smudged napkin, the faint tear streaks on the table surface, and the slight dent in the vinyl seat where someone had dug their heel. Something about it sat wrong with him. His instinct, trained from years of navigating chaos, whispered that something had happened, something unkind. The waitress eventually confirmed his suspicions, telling him quietly about the 3 boys who'd tormented the disabled girl. Hawk's jaw tightened, though not with rage, more with a deep, protective sorrow. His crew, overhearing the story, began shaking their heads, muttering under their breaths. They weren't men who tolerated cruelty, especially towards someone fragile. "Did she leave alone?" Hawk asked. "Yes," the waitress said, guilt heavy in her voice. "She looked shaken. I should have done more." Hawk rose from his chair, his boots thudding against the floor. "We will." Outside, the bikers mounted their bikes again, scanning the street until one of them spotted Lily several blocks away, leaning against a fence as though trying to gather strength. Hawk revved his engine softly, signaling the others, and they rode toward her slowly so as not to frighten her. Lily looked up, startled, but stayed still as they approached. Hawk parked nearest and removed his helmet, revealing kind eyes that contradicted his rough exterior. He walked toward her, hands open in a gesture of peace. Lily's breathing quickened with nervousness. She'd never interacted with bikers before, and their size alone was intimidating. But Hawk stopped a few feet away, lowering himself to her eye level. "We heard what happened," he said gently. "No one should have treated you like that." Lily swallowed hard, her throat thick. She didn't know what to say, but tears welled again, uninvited. Hawk didn't pressure her. He simply offered the safe presence she desperately needed in that moment. "You're stronger than they'll ever be," Hawk said softly, "but even the strongest people deserve backup." He extended a hand, not to grab, not to pull, but simply to offer support. After a timid pause, Lily placed her trembling hand in his, and he helped her stand upright. Her knee quivered, but he steadied her carefully, like one might handle something precious. The bikers didn't crowd her. They kept a respectful distance, forming a protective semicircle that blocked the wind and shielded her from curious stares. Hawk asked where she lived, and when she pointed down the road, he nodded to one of the younger bikers, named Skid, who offered to walk beside her while the others rode slowly behind. It wasn't an escort out of intimidation, it was a convoy of guardianship. As they walked, Lily felt something unfamiliar blooming in her chest, a sense of safety she hadn't felt since Ethan died. Skid chatted gently, telling her about the Ironheart's charity rides, the toy drives they did for sick children, and the work they did for disabled veterans. Lily listened quietly, surprised by how different they were from the stereotypes she'd always heard. When they reached her small home, her mother rushed outside in a panic. She had been worried when Lily arrived later than usual, and her concern deepened when she saw the bruised cheek. But when she noticed the bikers, she froze, unsure how to react. Hawk stepped forward respectfully. "Mom, we meant no trouble. We just wanted to make sure your daughter got home safe. Someone hurt her today, and we figured she shouldn't walk alone." Lily's mother's eyes softened with gratitude, and she thanked them, her voice trembling slightly. Hawk nodded once, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a small patch with the Iron Heart symbol. "For you," he said to Lily. "This means you've got friends now. If anyone bothers you again, you let us know." Lily cupped the patch gently, her fingers shaking for reasons other than her condition. She felt tears rising again, but these were different. These were warm, grateful. Her mother invited the bikers in for lemonade, and though they politely declined, they had places to be, they left with a promise to stop by again. Days passed, and word of what the boys had done to Lily spread throughout town, but so did word of the bikers who stood up for her. The Ironhearts began stopping by the diner more often, not to intimidate anyone, but to support local businesses and keep an eye on the environment. People slowly grew less afraid of them and more appreciative of their presence. The Bullies, on the other hand, felt the shift in the air. Everyone seemed to watch them more closely and not in admiration. Their cruel act wasn't forgotten, and the shame of it weighed on them more than they expected. A week later, the three boys made a hesitant walk toward Lily's house. Lily saw them from the porch and felt her stomach twist. But this time, she wasn't shaking with fear. She held the Iron Hearts patch in her pocket, and something about its presence steadied her. The boys apologized, awkwardly, stumbling over their words, but sincerely. Their guilt was evident, their eyes lowered in shame. Lily listened quietly, her heart torn between hurt and hope. She didn't forgive them immediately, but she thanked them for apologizing. That alone felt like a victory. Healing didn't come instantly, but the first step had been taken. Over the next month, Lily grew braver. She returned to the diner, no longer nervous, because she knew she wasn't alone. Hawk and his crew appeared occasionally, always giving her a nod or a warm smile. She felt protected, supported, and, most importantly, seen. Her world, once small and shadowed by fear, was expanding again. And slowly, a spark returned to her eyes. The spark Ethan used to love. The spark of a girl who refused to disappear. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the power of kindness, courage, and unexpected protectors, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world. Before the ending, please comment below. Kindness creates heroes. It helps more people find this story. In the end, Lily realized something powerful. Sometimes angels don't have wings. Sometimes they roar up on motorcycles, wearing leather jackets, carrying years of scars, and offering the kind of protection the world desperately needs. And sometimes one act of cruelty can be transformed, not erased, but reshaped by the overwhelming force of compassion from unexpected places. Because in a small-town diner on a grey afternoon, bullies laid their hands on a girl who'd already suffered too much. But just an hour later, bikers walked in, and everything changed.